welcome to a new edition of France in Focus. I'm Nadia Sharbi, and this week we take you behind the scenes at one of Paris's most distinctive monuments, the Hôtel des Invalides. Initially designed by King Louis XIV to take wayward war vets off the streets of the capital, the site was ransacked and its buildings renamed during the French Revolution before being restored by Napoleon and used as a powerful support base for his military ambitions. In fact, Bonaparte's remains now lie under the Invalides' beautiful golden dome. Well, we're now in the Caveau des Gouverneurs, the governor's crypt, an area off limits to the visiting public. This is where high-ranking military officials were laid to rest, among them Roger de Lille, the author of the French national anthem La Marseillaise. Let's take a closer look now at this site's rich history and a few of its hidden treasures.
A pair of gloves is essential when handling this document. It's 342 years old and was written by King Louis XIV.
So, here's the founding document of the Hôtel National des Invalides.
Writing in Old French, the king ordered that those who had shed their blood for the monarchy spend the rest of their days in tranquility. He assigned his Minister of War to the task of building the Invalides. Its first patients were injured troops from the 30 Years' War, a series of 17th century battles between European states. And the architects designed the building with wounded soldiers in mind.
These stairs were made with a gradual slope. For people walking was a wooden leg.
The man most often associated with the Invalides is Napoleon Bonaparte, the first emperor of France. He visited wounded soldiers here and it became his final resting place. King Louis Philippe had this tomb built for his remains after they were transferred from St. Helena, the island where he was exiled and died in 1821.
If you open the large outer casing, you'll find no less than 5 tombs. It was customary back then. I am the emperor's tomb keeper. That means I hold the key to his coffin.
The emperor's tomb keeper has given us special access to the maze of passages at the Invalides.
Obviously, this isn't open to the public.
We reach the rafters of the Saint Louis Cathedral, the veterans' place of worship. And there's an unexpected trap door, a trick disguised as a miracle for soldiers who prayed here.
Here you had somebody who would hold a dove in their hand and who would, at the right moment, hang the dove into the hole and let the dove fly, at which point they would say to the soldiers, "The Holy Spirit is with you."
A few more flights of stairs higher, and we're on the roof, Napoleon's favorite spot.
Napoleon liked being up high. He said a military man must train his sight and his way of looking at the horizon. It's very likely Napoleon would have come here to appreciate the view, but also to observe what was happening in Paris.
Around the dome, we retrace the footsteps of British Royal Air Force pilots. They left a message here as they were fleeing home to escape the Nazis. The Invalides has provided shelter for soldiers since the 17th century, and it continues to do so today.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by lecturer Béatrice Six. Hello, thank you very much for being with us. Now, some of the artifacts in the Invalides War Museum date back to the Bronze Age, but here we're in a display that's a little more recent. It goes back to King Louis XIII, I understand. And one of the most surprising, perhaps, artifacts on display here is these tiny coats of armor. Tell us about what these were used for.
This one was designed for Louis XIII. In noble families, children had to start training for battle very early, as they had to get used to wearing these coats of armor that were very heavy. Between 8 and 10 kilos for a child's suit and between 25 and 30 for an adult. They had to be taught how to move and even breathe with all that metal, and they also had to carry a weapon.
And the site itself of the Invalides is also, of course, steeped in history. And perhaps most surprisingly and notably, during the French Revolution, the Invalides of the Invalides armed the revolutionaries. Is that correct?
Yes and no. The insurgents found out that a huge stockpile of weapons and ammunition was stored in the underground vaults. And so they forced their way into the building with the help of a few inmates. But it was a chaotic scene. When they reached the steps down to the supplies, the crowd surged forward and a few people were trampled to death.
And moving forward once again to one of my favourite artefacts, I think, in this museum is the statue of Napoleon Bonaparte that stands guard over the main entrance here at the Invalides. It's an artefact that has a very interesting story. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, first you should know that the bronze used to make this statue came from melted enemy cannons, and initially it stood at the top of the Vendôme column near the Louvre. But when Napoleon was defeated, his supporters decided to hide it, for fear that his foes would make a public and symbolic show of destroying it. So the bronze was stashed away in different places, and eventually placed on a barge on the River Seine. But unfortunately it fell into the water, and that's when the statue is thought to have lost its head.
Because that's right, there was a rumour when the statue was found again quite a few years later and pulled out of the water that the head on the statue of Napoleon wasn't the original, and that rumour was confirmed when it was restored a few years ago.
Yes, that's when we discovered that there had been what you might call a surgical operation.
So perhaps the head of Napoleon is somewhere at the bottom of the Seine.
That's still a mystery.
Now, the Invalides have been used as a museum ever since the end of the 19th century. They hold the country's emblems, as well as a number of war trophies, including very many foreign cannons. But this one, Beatrice, is a French cannon. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's known as a 75mm cannon and was operated in active warfare during the First World War. It wasn't of any use in the trenches, though. The 75 was initially designed at the end of the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 and then hugely improved upon in the years that followed. It's equipped with an oleopneumatic brake which stops it from jumping back when it's fired. That means that the team of 6 people manning the cannon no longer had to wheel it back into position after every time it was fired.
And this changed the course of the war?
Of course, because it meant that you could really sustain fire. And it was much faster than its German counterpart, the 77mm cannon. That's why later it came into widespread use in many countries.
Moving to a very different kind of weapon, a very surprising one at that. This is one of the Parisian taxis that played a key role at the beginning of World War I. Tell us more about the taxis de la Marne, as they're known.
At the start of the war, means of travel were very limited. The railways had been destroyed and German troops were closing in on the capital. So the military governor of Paris, Maréchal Galliani, requisitioned the city's taxis to send out reinforcements by road. On the 6th and 7th of September 1940, some 600 taxi drivers brought their vehicles to the Invalides, and from here they drove the soldiers to the front line, 5 men at a time. It's an episode that helped build national cohesion and fuel patriotism by illustrating the bond between the military and civil society.
Now, while you might think that the Invalides has become a grand old monument dedicated to history and tourism, it's also still an active military hospital and hospice. Let's take a tour of these remarkable facilities.
Colonel Ronald Fraboulet is a senior doctor at the Invalides Military Hospital. He's taking us to meet one of the 91 patients who are permanent residents. There's a shroud of secrecy surrounding patients here. All we're told is that Captain César was injured while on a mission in Africa. He was admitted to the Invalides after 2 years of intensive care.
They're going to think you're some kind of torturer.
It's not a problem, I'm used to it.
Why is this place so special and different to the others for you?
This place is filled with history. It's the flagship of military hospitals. Even today you see a huge mix of people, from those who lived through World War II to the Kosovo generation, Afghanistan, and now the Sahel.
As well as his physio sessions, Captain César has chosen to go back to university to improve his future options.
Well, we have to adapt, and we do. It's a case of being resourceful, of making the best of a bad lot.
The hospital is well equipped. Down in the basement is a therapeutic swimming pool, a favourite with the injured soldiers.
It's a joy to see the patients arrive, the smile on their face as they come down.
The water reduces the patient's weight, enabling movement in injured limbs. For some of the disabled residents, sport is one of the most challenging aspects of their rehabilitation. Each discipline, each machine is unique and adapted to every type of handicap.
With a single click, the seat is pulled back, and you work out by pulling the cord. And if you sit up like this, you're working the muscles.
Progress here can restore hope for many patients.
I've seen people who were no longer smiling, who were completely closed off, and they came back to life. That's why this is such a great place.
The aim here is not to just provide treatment. The patients are also preparing to return to civilian life, the life that awaits them outside these walls.
And that's where we're leaving this edition. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to France 24.